Hi, welcome to THRiiVE Summit number 13, and if the people in the kitchen aren't quiet. Thank you. Sorry about that. That was terrible. I'm sorry, bottoms up, people. Welcome to Reality Check, 2 beers in and 9:55. This is Sarah Corshane, who's way classier than I, obviously. And she has a list of questions from bottoms up. When I told Sarah she should come to this, she had a group of her people donate for a plane ticket and what she needed, and she has a place in LA that she's staying with one of her people. It's very exciting. I've told all of you that she's the future of medicine. Right here, Sarah Corshane. How old are you?
Am I?
Yes.
I'm 25.
She's 25 years old. She's moderating a Facebook group, like only someone coming from a good place energetically, who really wants the truth to get out there and doesn't want it to be slowed down by people who just want to be angry or anything like that. It started as a coffee enema group, but the biggest reason why I'm so drawn to it, Scott Forsgren told me about it, is because by the time you become someone doing a coffee enema, you're at a whole different level of health. You're at a whole different level of at least get my boobs out. Okay, there we go. You're at a whole different level of understanding, your whole experimentation, evolution. And so these people get on there and they troubleshoot each other at this epic level of personal experience. I mean, it's just magical to watch what she's able to do. And I think the THRiiVE world needs to figure out how to emulate that. Like, I think ASEA needs places where people are not only doing ASEA, but what does that mean around their health? And they troubleshoot for each other. And every little thing that they're, you know, whether they're doing Keystone or whatever, it's a collection of people. But the biggest thing is someone like Sarah who can modulate the energy around these topics. So I asked Sarah to come up with questions. Bye, Grandma. No. Bye, thank you for coming. That's my mom. Thank you. Bye-bye. Grandma, bye-bye. Thanks, Robert.
Actually, I think she came up with a list of questions, and then you said, we don't do that at my summit.
Well, because my concern was she was going to come more in groupie mode. Like, oh, Dr. Like Scott did. Like Scott did. This is Scott the first time we came to my summit. Dr. Klinghardt, I have a list. Is there any way we could go through it? I'm like, yeah, dog. So when she came up with the list, I said, I'll call Dr. Cowden and we'll just get through this list. And we did a Google Hangouts and about an hour and 20 minutes.
It wasn't just me, though. It was,
it's your people.
It was my people.
It's your people. See, right? So Dr. Cowden and I went over the list. The sad thing was that not as many people appreciate Dr. Cowden like they do Dr. Klinghardt. I don't know. You're like some cold.
There's a group
okay,
that
this is obvious. You keep talking.
There's a group that covers more like herbal protocols, so they do really respect what you're saying. And I tried to share that in that group, but they weren't really familiar with me, so they were like, "Who's this girl?"
I'm gonna trade because this isn't as loud. So the boys loud. This one. Okay. We're getting there. Okay.
Okay.
And you're gonna pass it back and forth. I'm hoping Deidre comes closer, hand to hand, and you're gonna use this one. You have to hold it by that thing. Straight there. You got it?
I'm on.
Ah, there we go. There's Sarah. So we did a bunch of questions with Lee. We got through them really fast. Super great information. And then they came up with like 30 more. The biggest reason why I want to ask and get answer these questions is because these cutting edge people will take it to the next cutting edge if we just get them over the humps that they're on. So, Sarah, ask your, go ahead. No, one more question.
Good. Gary Gordon is familiar with this, but a lot of the other people in the room are not. About 30 years ago, there was a health practitioner shortage in China, and the Chinese government came up with a solution, which they call the And the barefoot doctors were basically housewives and general public that had an interest in trying to help other people. And so the health practitioners that were available taught those barefoot doctors how to do some really basic things. You know, how to look at a tongue, or how to look at the square of the eye, or how to look at the nails, and certain other, even check some basic pulses, not 120 different things about the body, but 12 things about the body. And then from that information, you know, if you have this symptom and this physical finding, then stick a needle in this place or get this herb. And if you can't fix them, then send them upline. So they became the triage system for the country. So I think that your group is going to be like that. I think we're heading for a time in this country where we're going to have a healthcare practitioner shortage. There's very good evidence that as many as 30% of the U.S. physicians will retire in the next 2 years once Obamacare is fully implemented. Yeah. If that happens, we're going to have a whole lot of people needing help, but not very many people to give it. So you're going to need your group. And,
I agree. It's so great being the moderator of this group, and then sharing information, and then watching that information be spread out with other people. They start sharing, and it's like everyone's their own little practitioner, and they all want to help each other, and it's all about, that's what it is all about. It's all about helping each other. Nobody's making any money off of this. They're getting better by what other people are telling them. They're sharing their information. They're taking in information. It's a cool forum. So I guess I can get started with some questions. Let's see. So one of the big questions is, a lot of people are confused about diet. They're all over the place. Is there a diet that you've noticed most people with health, challenged health, is there a diet that they really don't respond to? There's certain diets that just you would never advise, because people are willing to try everything. They're trying, absolutely no fats. They're trying no salt. They're doing fruitarian. They're doing vegan, vegetarian. There's some people doing raw, including raw meat. So is there one or a number of diets that you would say don't even go there?
Yeah, I would say the SAD diet, the standard American degenerate diet. Don't go there. This is a complicated question. It's probably the most complicated one that you'll ask tonight, I think. And because it is complicated, a few months ago, I decided to write a book about the topic. So it's called Foods That Fit the Unique You. It'll be out in about 3 weeks, and hopefully we'll answer some of the questions, but it's not going to answer all the questions because we're all unique. That's the problem. And so many of the diets that are on the market, one size fits all diet, because this diet helped me, the writer, it's going to help everybody. That's how.
I think on the diet topic, we all have like a long history, and I'd like to give a few pointers, sort of, I think that highlight some issues. So first of all, my own personal history, I lived in India for 3 years and had every parasite, every infection you can probably get. And then it took me like 40 years to recover from that. And for example, if I tried to go on a raw food diet, I would virtually be dead in 2 days. Yeah? And the raw food diet is a fantastic tool for a lot of people, but for some people that have a damaged gut, it's absolutely the wrong thing. Then, in the late 80s, the high protein diet came around, and that looked really good to me. And I tried that. And within 3 weeks or so on the high protein diet, I realized that I had Lyme disease, because it's the worst thing you can do when you have a chronic infection. You can really, really activate it by going on a high protein diet. So there went the high protein diet. Very early on, the ketogenic diet, high-fat diet, are a fantastic tool for a lot of neurological illnesses. And in young people, we can do that for about a year. And older people, if you do it more than 6 months, you really, within a short period of time, you see increased calcification of the coronary arteries and the brain arteries, and it's not a good diet to do for a long time. It was developed by Johns Hopkins, And they have now the modified ketogenic diet, where they're putting all brakes on it and kind of say, don't do that thing for very long. But it's been hugely helpful for kids with seizures, for people with Parkinson's and others, but it shouldn't be done for a long time. So there is also, when you do a certain diet, is it forever or for how long? And then last thing I want to say is that in general, it's true that while we're growing until about 18 or 20 or so, our dietary needs are completely different from like somebody my high age or even older people like Gary Gordon. And in general, it's true that it is a high risk procedure to put children on a vegan diet or on a vegetarian diet even, unless you really know what to do, and you're a mother who has incredible resources and can spend the whole day in the kitchen and shopping. The low protein diet or the vegan diet is really dangerous. There's some statistic amongst German schools that the highest number of retarded children come from families with vegan diet. So there is a thing, when you have parasites and you don't know if you eat a vegan diet, you're down deep quick. However, the older you get, your protein needs go dramatically down and your fat needs go down. And the older you get, the more the diet should shift towards a vegetarian diet and, if possible, towards a raw food diet. And so we see that trend very clearly. You know, the younger you are, unless you're really in an elitist kind of group where we can have your own cook and somebody who can soak your almonds at night and you can make this milk and that milk. In general, children have a high protein need, high fat need, and it should be respected. And I know there's 1,000 more things that we have, the blood group diet, which I think in general is underrated. I think it's a very good tool. We have 4 different principles, different kinds of food allergy testing in the country. None of them are reliable. We did cross-sampling on all the diets that are available, all the food allergy tests that are available, where you take the same blood of the patient and send it in under 2 different names. With each one of the principally different allergy tests, you get different results back. That means they're not reliable, not reproducible, and not, in general, not really helpful. So that's a diet myth that I also like to just mention here. And then there's the metabolic typing, which I have high respect for. That's Walcott's method of assessing various parts of the history. It's great for adults, but you can't do it for children. You can't ask children, how they're feeling when they eat this and whether they have a preference for coffee or not. They never had it. And so in autistic kids, it's difficult to do the metabolic typing because it's based largely on questionnaires that really can get. So I think these are just a couple of pointers I want to make with the diet, and we're all looking forward to Lee's diet book because he's been in the field and has observed the same things. And I think, with me having had my India years behind me and my very severely damaged gut, I don't want to go in details on that, my diet needs are completely different from any other person in my age group. And so it brings it back. That diet should be highly individualized, but not based on some preconceived ideas, but it's much trial and error. And to bring it back to autism, my own experience with autism is that 80% of autistic kids have Lyme disease. All of them are very toxic with aluminum and glyphosate and other things. All of them have parasites. And that completely changes the nutritional needs away from what their type is. So their inborn metabolic type is not what they need. Every vitamin you take orally feeds the parasite first. What the patient gets is the poop of that vitamin, not the actual thing. And so you cannot translate the things as we usually do. Okay, yeah, you need vitamin C. Yeah, you need it. Your cells need it. But if you take it, you're not getting the vitamin C. It's your ropeworm or your asparagus that gets the vitamin C, and then what comes out on the other end, nobody has ever looked at what it actually is, what you're getting. And the same is true for food. So maybe there's one more thing I'd like to say. There was a study that's unfortunately overlooked. Many of you know what the Bircher muesli is.
Yeah, that's yummy.
Yeah, Bircher Benner was a Swiss researcher, and he actually went around the world to look at diet similar to what this Western Price did. And he found a group in some Caribbean island of people that lived well beyond the 100 years, 110 years old, had rampant sex when they were in the hundreds. And he studied their diet habits, and he found that only they were surrounded by fish.
That's you needed a high-protein diet.
They ate only sweet potatoes. They had fruit. They wouldn't touch it. They had coconuts. They wouldn't. Not so close. It bothers me. So it was like they broke all the rules of diet, and they looked healthy. And so what he found out, he examined their bowel bacteria, that they had Clostridia that were transforming the sugars in the diet, combining it with the nitrogen in the air that we're breathing, creating de novo amino acids, and giving them a beautiful spectrum of amino acids and fats that are generating of the sugars from the sweet potato. And then has, since 1945, we published it, with scientific publication. Has never been, nobody has ever looked there again. What actually our bowel bacteria are doing with the food. There's very, very little known about that. And so any ideas that we have about diet right now, there is really no good science that we have that we can lean on. There is no good current research going on that we can lean on. We all know that fecal transplants are the big business that's coming. We take the healthy poop of someone, because there's over 400 species of buying a health food store is two, acidophilus, derivatives, and Saccharomyces. There's two basic bugs we can buy out of 400. How about the other 398? You need a fecal transplant, and it's becoming big business now. But I think as physicians, we have no civil science to lean on. We only have practical experience, and we have a few lab parameters. Yes, if the morning insulin is high, we know you're still eating too much sugar or too much carbs. But in general, all the ideas that I see out there are fads that have come and have gone, and some of them fit for some. And so I think we're waiting for you to see what you put together out of this mess.
Well, it was a task. I'll just say that we found that the blood type diet didn't pan out. The research really doesn't show that that's that important. When you look at the research carefully, as far as figuring out the food allergies, I agree completely with the fact that you can't get reliable results out of labs. So the best way to go about food allergy testing is with the Coca Pulse test. And the Coca Pulse test, anybody can do at home for no cost, and that's in the book. And if you don't identify the food allergens and avoid the food allergens that are strong enough to cause an abnormal Coca Pulse test, you create acidosis in the tissues, and then you mess up your metabolism. We found that measuring the saliva pH first thing in the morning was one of the best ways to figure out what foods you should and should not eat. Not measuring the saliva pH after a meal, which tells you how much hydrochloric acid. So, there's a bunch of this stuff in the book.
I'm looking forward to that. I think we all are.
You're coming on diet.
Really quick, what about the poker diet? Meaning, if it's working for you, fabulous. And then playing the hand that you're playing, meaning if you're trying to kill bugs, have a diet that doesn't feed the bugs.
Yeah.
But mostly, if it's...
In the first part of the book, you talk about the diet that fits the disease process that's going on at that time. And then after you get over that disease process, then you go on to whatever's next or whatever's normal.
So there's multiple diets for multiple stages. Yeah.
And Dr. William Donald Kelly found that there were some patients that came to him that were sympathetic metabolic types, and when he first saw them. Then they went under a stressful period and burned out their adrenal glands and no longer had the ability to produce the sympathetic hormones. Sympathetic hormones are sympathetic neurotransmitters, and as a result, switched into an oxidative metabolic type, which required exactly the opposite food types to maintain the metabolism where it was previously. And then once they recovered from the stress and their adrenal glands came back online, they went back to the way they were before. Okay.
Let me just say last thing. We know this, but
It's never the last thing,
I developed a method of muscle testing where we can pretty exactly in the 90% foods are going to be healing foods for a patient and which ones are going to be really disastrous. And we can do that on a newborn because it doesn't require any feedback that we need from the child other than the responses of their autonomic nervous system. And so that that's what I do, and that's by far the most reliable method that we know, and we can follow the changes as a patient heals the nutritional needs change. And I know other people are doing it by symptoms, and I take my hat off to people that can do that. That can read the thousands of different nuances of symptoms and go from there to that. But people are completely capable of doing it, and I think people like you can put that together by evaluating the fine feedback that you're getting, the differentiated feedback, and then see what fits and what doesn't.
I want just to ask, you had mentioned the fecal transplant, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on the safety of doing those and the possibility of introducing new infections into the system.
I think fecal transplant would be fine if you could find a healthy donor. That's the trick, because there's very few healthy donors out there. And unless you're going to screen in my opinion, the donor really needs to be a child, a young child, who's born to healthy parents and has never consumed antibiotics, pesticides, herbicides, GMO foods, blah, 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 blah. There's not very many parents out there like that.
And I was wondering, since he mentioned earlier that ASEA was open, we should put the poop in the ASEA first.
Yeah. Well, we have a wonderful guy in Portland who's doing the fecal transplant for our children, and he screens the donors very carefully. They have to have healthy parents, healthy siblings, never be vaccinated. That's one of his criteria. And he puts them through at least all the available parasite tests, and then the poop has to be transferred within the first 15 minutes when it comes out. So the donor actually has to come to the office, hold their poop that morning, and he uses donors that are no older than 12 years, so maximum age 12 years, and it's been a fantastic experience so far. Everybody's got a dramatic health improvements with that. So it's definitely a thing of the future. And I know I have friends in Big Pharma, and they're all trying to patent bugs now where they actually freeze dry the poop and culture it and culture out these 400 species of bugs and then commercially and patent them with the FDA. So nobody can use their own poop anymore because then suddenly you find it to be patented.
Oh my God!
Yeah, no, that's where we're going.
I know. Same with marijuana.
So there's a lot going on.
So is there anybody that you wouldn't recommend a fecal implant on?
I'm a total enthusiast about it.
So for bottoms up people who've been doing coffee enemas, if they can find as healthy as a donor as they can find, because even if they're not healthy,
we have, Andrea Lama, which we mentioned before, she was introduced us to the fecal transplants here probably 10 years ago, something like 8 years ago, whenever that was, and we used a lot mother-to-child fecal transplants. That was always safe. We put mom on antiparasitics, we clean her up, and then when we feel the poop is reasonable, because what we found is that any pathogen that the mother has, we definitely find it. If we find it in a child, the mother may or may not have it. But anything the mother has is in the child already, so there's no risk of doing the fecal transplant from her to the child. So if we clean the mother up and then do the transplant mother to child, we've only seen improvements from that. So that's another one. But that goes beyond diet. This is diet from the other end.
Yeah. Just quickly, just so you guys have reference, 90% of the people in her group are adults without children with autism. And that's part of my draw to it. Because they're smart, they feel it, they see it, and then they take it to the next level without fear because it's not a nonverbal child.
So basically what Dana is saying, you are doing research on adults to see if it's safe for children.
Well, they don't know that they've signed up for that yet, but you know.
Well, it's cool because since everyone's an adult,
and then we'll go Gary after.
so tired I apologize. Yeah.
She's like,
When it comes to a healthy diet,
someone needs to help me.
Tom knows about diet because he had a 5-year fast.
Oh my God, you're so bad, Niedrich.
Now, I don't know a lot about fecal implants.
Thank God.
As I was saying, I don't know too much about fecal implants. In the 80s, I used to import E. coli from Germany. It's very successful. FDA got mad at me. That was one of the first times. But when it comes to diet, you know, obviously we're all different, as was stated. But it would seem to me that the more real the food that there is, the better it is. And certainly, then that you know, a lot of people in the United States live to eat versus eating to live, and because it's very comfortable. I mean, who doesn't like to sit around with some buttered popcorn and pizza and whatever goes along with it? But if a person eats non-processed food, in other words, real food, eliminates anything that smells like sugar or is sugar or ends up being sugar very easily. I think if you just kind of follow that, real food, eliminate the simple stuff, and then enjoy what seems like you go into like a supermarket or you go into a smorgasbord and you kind of pick out the things that look appealing to you. As long as it's real food, you're probably making the right choice. And for a lot of people that I've talked to about this over 7 decades, it seems like it works pretty well for these people. And I know that for myself, you know, I've learned the hard way several times. And where I was recently, the food wasn't really, you know, what I call quality food because it wasn't. And so when you have a choice, make it count and eliminate some of that stuff that really is poison and eat the real stuff.
Good job. At the same time, though, don't you think some carb restriction is warranted when you're trying to downregulate bugs? Get back to that question after Gary goes.
Yeah. Well, the quality of food is the biggest part of the issue. And when I was a kid, we had victory gardens, and we're now going to have liberty gardens.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be liberated, you're going to have a decent supply of food that is picked when it's ripe from balanced soil. And so, if we look at the big picture, everybody that changes diet, tremendous number of people's report, oh, the Atkins diet changed my life, this diet changed my life, because South Beach, there made a difference. Anytime you change your diet, you stop eating some of the offending foods.
Yeah.
Because due to a little company called Monsanto, we may have a little tendency toward an epidemic of leaky gut, but that's tied to Bacillus thuringiensis, which is in all genetically modified food. The purpose being that BT is what they promised the farmer, that you won't have to buy so many insecticides because we'll build it in the food. And BT, when it was not from genetic manipulation, didn't seem to be that toxic.
Right.
But now that we have it being fed to so many people, and no matter how careful you are to 100% avoid GMO soy, GMO corn, and GMO rice, and GMO wheat, you're getting it. So I take the position that technically we may have to take advantage of Chris Schad's idea. After 7 days, maybe you try something else for 4 days, because the point is this. I first listened carefully when Jeff Bland told stories 25, 30 years ago of a lady who got down to about 90 pounds because she was going to die of her ulcerative colitis. And somebody asked her, did anybody ever change her diet? Nobody had ever discussed diet with her. So since she was near death, she had nothing else to do but try a macrobiotic. And within a few months, she was back to 140 pounds and felt fantastic and thought she was a tiger. But nobody changed anything. So now she's deathly allergic to the soy. So that's my point, is that we are living in such a totally contrived world that whether you use the idea of the cocoa pulse test, whatever you use, be aware that Patrick Kingsley is the top doctor in England on treating multiple sclerosis, and he's been on our board of oxidative medicine, and under a pen name, he wrote a book called The Medical Detective Story. And it's his life history of treating MS with patients who, no matter how many people, they put them on metabolic ward, and they never figured out that this patient had to stop carrots. That's not one of the foods you would think of that you have to stop. So as you begin to realize, as has been nicely mentioned, because I recently peer-reviewed for a medical journal how bad our current tests are for identifying which foods we can eat and can't eat, which takes me back to liking muscle testing or EAV or whatever works for you.
So you know, we have 30 questions. Just so you know.
But we have to be fully conversant with the fact that whatever's working for you. And we have to be aware that I loved the Time magazine last month, front cover, eat butter. At least we begin to destroy the myth of cholesterol, and we begin to waken up people to the possibility that some people live to 110 because they ate a lot of fat. So the complexity of our discussion could go on all night. We're going to go back to the next question.
And we have 30 questions. We should keep it. Rock these are great. These are great. This is great because food is huge. Can we just come to consensus on a few things? Number one, if you're targeting bugs, there's a very good chance that carb restriction will be a piece of that puzzle.
And protein restriction.
And protein restriction if targeting parasites. Right. What?
Funguses like sugar more.
Absolutely, but for the parasites, then you have to add in the ammonia piece and the lowering protein, especially in the full moon, which is on one of my slides. But the point is, think of yourself, you're playing a game of poker, and you're losing it out, and play the hand you're dealt. I mean, if you're targeting parasites, match that. If you're feeling great and you're not trying to shift anything, and you're eating stuff that you feel good on, match. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to, your food will change over the years. Yeah. Okay.
Sarah.
Yes. Jesus.
And, but I'll only two more quick comments. As often as possible, eat what's grown locally. If you can grow it in your backyard, that's even better. If you can grow it under a greenhouse that you put in your backyard, which you can do for about $500, you will shield it from the radioactive fallout that's coming down the road every day. And so you eat less radioactive food that way. If you bought your food from a farm in California where the radioactivity levels are higher.
Right.
And then also, once you get your food, ferment it. Ferment as much as you can because it's that way pre-digested.
Fermented! Oh my God, huge! Fermented. It's like, whoa, hit it out of the park. But they have to titrate it. You can't just go fermented. Baby steps.
What I try to refer to, when I eat fermented food, I die.
Really?
There is damaged guts that cannot do fermented food. So the
What if you
moms need to
slowly
know
melt?
that there is kids out there that cannot do fermented food. So
Cover rules again!
for 80% of the kids, fantastic. 20% lethal.
People with leaky gut, then, should they be staying away from that?
Yes, they should. Well,
They have to titrate it in.
well cooked food. There is a reason why humans developed after the invented fire, because when you actually heat up food, many of the micronutrients only become available after heating it up. And the fermented people, the raw food people overlook that. Many of them look starved.
What are your thoughts?
Wait, another quick thing I talk most, and I'm talking loud enough. The surface area of the food is where the enzymes can contact, correct? So, when you feed a kid food that comes out of their poop, you can either eliminate that food and assume it's a problem, or you can julienne it into these long strips of bioavailable to the enzymes for access, and then suddenly they're able to digest after you've steamed it a little bit. There's all kinds of things that make food digestible. If it is in your poop, it's a disaster. Get rid of it.
If it's undigested in your
Yes.
Yeah. Sure.
I was particularly happy that Victoria Bauman in the Phoenix area is a PhD that happens to believe in doing colonics. And I can send her people who are scheduled for a colectomy tomorrow because they're going to die of their ulcerative colitis. And in every case, we always cancel the surgery. We do the ozonated colonic, and then we do an implant. Now, this is what really makes me mad, because we talked about Saccharomyces and Lactobacillus available to you. And we pretend that what you take in the mouth has got some usefulness. Everybody that I send to her, and since Tom Bader mentioned that FDA wasn't happy when we bring good things in from other countries, we won't say how she happens to occasionally find something. But miraculously, when she sticks the implant in the behind, all my patients routinely report a doubling of stool volume, along with the elimination of symptoms, which suggests to me that all this nonsense, that taking our probiotics at the upper end is getting to the lower end, is complete nonsense. Back to you. We need another question.
So everyone's good till like 2 or 3 in the
Bottoms
morning,
up.
right?
Bottoms up, that's what you're saying.
Okay, so now we're going to go quick. I'm saying out of it, you're going to keep it quick. We have lots of time to do the other stuff. Let's keep it quick. Okay.
All right. If somebody has chronically low body temperature, should they avoid juicing or fasting? Should they avoid either of those if they have chronically low body
Oh, they
temperature?
should fix the chronically low body
Let me say
temperature.
something just about the basic physiology.
Thank you.
So there's several things in our system that keep us warm, that make the body temperature go up. And this question implies just one of the mechanisms, and that is, it's called the specific dynamic effect of physiology. Like when you eat protein, the proteins are dismantled in the liver when they're taken up by the bloodstream and goes to the liver. And the liver dismantles the proteins to amino acids, and that process creates heat. And so when people eat raw food or are juicing, there's little protein in there, or the protein that's in there is already in the form of amino acids. They don't get that effect. And therefore people that have a dysfunctional thyroid and dysfunctional adrenal, where the other two heating systems don't work, then if you take that away, that sometimes it's the last mechanism they have to create body heat, then it will be cold. But it's really, this is just a backup mechanism, and the primary mechanism, I think Keith should talk about how we create body heat. And if that system works, we don't need the protein mechanism to keep us warm. If the adrenals are working and the thyroid is working, we don't need the specific dynamic effect of the liver breaking down proteins and creating heat.
But you would say fix the body temperature, number one, right?
If the thyroid happens to be functioning, of course, with the bromine and the fluorine, we have the epidemic of iodine deficiency. So if you I only go to 2 to 3 conferences every month for the last 34 years. So that's a few $1 million. And in the consensus of the people I hang out with is that 70% of people do not have enough thyroid. Now,
I think it's higher.
yeah, so Dr. Klinghardt would like 80 to 90%. So all I'm letting you know is how much thyroid do you need, because the book Type 2 Hypothyroidism that has been written by a really nice guy, Mark Starr, his book...
2 hours.
Yeah, S-T-A-R-R. Important to understand that he's currently between 3 to 4 grains of thyroid for the average patient. And when I got out of medical school, which was only just yesterday, 56 years ago, the average person only needed 2 grains. So we have so stressed the system today, and because of the epidemic of autoimmune disease, there's going to be people who might never get their temperature up without 6 grains or higher, but that's only a piece of a puzzle, and I'm going to turn the question back to somebody else.
He gets it up all day long.
Okay.
This is Keith Morey. He's a body temperature separator. Oh, thank you, sir.
He's a body temperature freak.
Freak?
That's where he starts. He
Okay,
won't
you
do
got-
people
you
until he
got-
gets the body temperature up.
My contention is that it's temperature problems or thyroid problems are primarily caused by stress in the system, physical and mental, and that's caused from parasites, fungus, and everything of that nature overrunning the body. So if you knock down the infection, you basically have to knock it down physically to knock down the stress of the body, and then mentally to convert the thyroid. But in regards to your question, I would try to stay away from anything that's simple carbs in regards to thyroid. And other than that, your question's been answered. We got to go.
I did.
Quickly, quick.
Yeah, I didn't comment on that one, but I would say never drink cold fluids, only warm fluids. Never eat cold foods, only warm foods. And you can look on the internet and find out which are the yang foods and the yin foods. Eat more of the yang foods, less of the yin foods.
Let me just kind of think.
Let me
The
check.
first word I want to have the last word on this one.
Absolutely.
So if people are chronically cold and they have the question like this, to eat raw food or do a lot of juicing, I do think they should do the juicing and the raw food, but they should optimize the thyroid function, bring the temperature up, and they should optimize the adrenal function to bring the temperature up.
Thank you.
Stress reduction
And there's iodine involved, there's stuff involved. But like you said on your thing with me, you're like, Dana, if they just wear socks and hats, they do better. And it's like they're not attempting to get their body warm, they're just cold and they try to not be cold, but they don't try to tweak it the other direction.
Yeah. When the body temperature drops from 97.8 degrees to 96.8 degrees, the immune system drops dramatically, like over 30%. When you drop to 95.8 degrees Fahrenheit under the norm, before we get out of bed in the morning, it drops down to less than half. So.
Okay, next question. We could do this all night, Sarah. You're the one on the East Coast.
Oh, I know. I can fall asleep.
And don't think any of them are not worthy of an answer. Okay, I'll think one.
Here's,
Go ahead.
here's a good one. Okay, so what can women do during pregnancy to address their toxic burden? And then also, to follow up with that, what can they do to address their toxic burden while they're breastfeeding?
They can buy the Brighton Baby book by Roy Dittman.
Let me just, from the literature, there's a wonderful team in Japan, Dr. Nakano and his colleagues, and they used chlorella and showed that by giving the mom during the pregnancy quite a moderate dose of chlorella, that it would prevent the mother to fetus transfer of most environmental toxins. And they did a study on the dioxin model. Dioxin is a very small molecule, and it's pretty much assumed in toxicology whatever works for dioxin works for thousands of other chemicals. Yeah. So they demonstrated that for chlorella. So we've done that now for 30 years. We have this term in Germany, chlorella babies. So the children that come out are bigger. They latch onto the breast faster, they find the nipple, they know exactly what to do when they come out, and have much, much higher performance later in school. And we have the first people now, they themselves are doctors and attorneys that have been protected during a pregnancy like this, and it's a huge difference to see that. And then Nakano did a follow-up study. How about the breast milk? We know that breast milk is full of fats, and all the fat-soluble toxins from the mother appear in the breast milk and are transferred to the fetus. The fetus is used as a dumping ground in biology, especially for the first baby. Gets 2/3 of the entire toxic burden of the mother, and often gets crushed by it for life. And so Nakano could show the same that he found for the transplacenta transfer, he found for the breast milk, that by giving the mother chlorella, he could greatly reduce the toxin amount in the breast milk. And we sort of have a simple rule. The mother during the pregnancy should take enough chlorella so the poop is slightly grainy. So we know the entire gut is lined with it. And then when it comes to breastfeeding, she should take enough chlorella so the breast milk is slightly grainy.
Wow.
And we have fantastic results with that. Like I said, now over 30 years of experience with it, it really works. I'm sure there's other things. I'm sure if you use the right form of zeolite, if you use silica to bind the aluminum, which is a huge growing problem in this, and if you use chitosan, the other things that are available for binding, especially binders, the microsilica from Crochet is what we call a microsilica, the IMD. And Crochet is huge in binding circulating toxins. So what is important is that during the pregnancy, the mother tries unconsciously to transfer her toxins to the growing fetus. During breast and lactation, the mother's biology is dumping as much toxin as it can into the newborn baby, and we can use the process while everything is stirred up to actually detox the mother intelligently, largely through the correct binders. It's a huge filtrating surface, and it's like an ion exchange membrane that filtrates out of the blood into the poop, all the toxic stuff, rather than letting it slip over to the fetus to bind it that way and get it out in the poop.
Can I give you my take on that too? I even
Take a mic while you're looking. First graphic I ever created, Dietrich, right there. See the mom and the chlorella? Think green breast milk from you, baby.
And even when, maybe it's because I'm the owner of the product, but when the pregnant women come up, I tell them not to take my product, to take the chlorella. But it's for a number of reasons, and one of them is because there was something fundamentally different when we got up to a certain thiol level, and it could be because it's on the silica as well. When you get to the chlorella, there's less thiols, but there's something different. Because when we did do IMD, we went through several iterations of carbon to sulfur ratios, till we got something that but triggered the letdown reflex, where there's a cascade of something coming out. And so if they're pregnant or if they're breastfeeding, I don't want to shake the tree too much.
Yes.
And that's why even like for somebody who's like really solid, you're just binding. But for a lot of the other people, when you open up the phase 3 doors at the GI level, it opens things all the way up to the brain. I showed you the graphic of the blood-brain barrier, where you have the phase 2 and phase 3 co-located there at the blood-brain barrier. So if we get something really powerful that opens those doors, there is a cascade of opening all the way through the body. And this, I always call it shaking the tree, and the apples will fall. The apples will fall, and we see that even with IMD that's supposed to just bind to the GI tract, there's kidney pain in some people. If everything is not open, you shake the tree enough that enough of it, once it hits the blood, if you see it not going into the blood, it distributes through the kidney and liver, even if you're favoring the liver. And so you're going to have kidney pain, just like you're going to have some accumulation of the breast milk. So I don't want to shake the tree. I want a very gentle move. So it's either a very, very low dose of ours, but I'd rather just send them to chlorella at that point.
So wait, can we get the consensus right here?
Let me just say this in one more simple term. Yeah, so there is pure binders, that means things that only bind in the gut but circulates through the bloodstream without having an effect of mobilizing more toxins to come down the chute.
Yeah.
And Chris says that most of the agents that have a binding effect also have an effect of sending a signal to all the cells in the body, hey, you guys, send down more toxins. And in that case, it would strike the fetus or the newborn baby. And so we don't want that. We want to stuff what's already in the blood. We want to extract it from the blood, but not create more cells released.
It has to be a mellow move.
And it's a difficult, it's a balance,
yeah.
So, Chris, Gary, Lee, Dietrich, everyone else in the room that knows science, could you say safely a pregnant woman can take chlorella?
But
Pregnant?
not too many, 5 to 10.
I thought you used to
More
say till
aggressive
the
10 twice a
breast milk
day,
was
more
green.
aggressive.
Well, let's be precise. Like the proper thing is
If it's just binding.
preconception healthcare.
Sure, sure.
Oh, absolutely.
You get the amalgam fillings out, the root canals out.
That didn't happen.
Absolutely.
She's pregnant.
Yeah, no, but I think for the purpose of what we're doing is important to send that signal. There should not be any advanced society in the world that doesn't deliver preconception healthcare, which means the radical detox of the mother
and father.
Of course, if you roll it back further, but the good thing is that the father is too toxic, the sperm is worthless, he's not going to create a pregnancy.
Yeah.
But once a good sperm comes through, sort of then the dam back on it, it's done.
So can we say chlorella? My understanding of what you're saying, and from when you said it in the beginning, chlorella to the point where their breast milk is green. And then you know that it's binding up the toxins that would otherwise be going through the baby. So as far as upper dosing limit, if it's just a binder, it's not. I'm giving up for dosing limit that you guys can agree on.
Our average dose is 10 tablets 3 times a day.
Are you good with that, Lee? 10 tablets 3 times a day?
250 milligram tablets.
Chris, 10 tablets 3 times a day.
Doing breastfeeding, that is, because the transfer is so.
I'm cool with that.
How about pregnant? Same, pregnant?
Like that breast milk is green thing, please retract that, like, wholehandedly.
No, it depends.
But three times a day.
No, but the green breast milk is for the moms that are in a danger zone. She's worked as a dental hygienist. For 20 years or.
I'll get rid of that.
Oh, yeah.
She worked as a gardener.
I mean, that's like the woman I told you about today. He was so high, we had to have her on 30 scoops a day just to make her functional.
If she gets pregnant.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm with you.
The baby is doomed, and we can save that baby by being a bit courageous with the dosing.
Okay,
He's absolutely correct.
Let's focus on the main point, which is you feel comfortable with chlorella during pregnancy and during breastfeeding, up to 10 tablets 3 times a day. The more toxic you are, the cost to benefit goes towards more chlorella, hoping that the problems with chlorella are way less than what you were binding in the first place. Okay.
If you determine that you're halfway through the pregnancy and you should be doing this, don't start out with 3 times a day.
Right. You don't want to
start out low and build up slowly.
I know vitamin C, same still, that hasn't stopped. Okay, vitamin C will knock this stuff off or something?
Is that right? No vitamin C?
While you're taking chlorella. Is this right? Anymore?
Taking it at the same time. Yeah, chlorella, vitamin C, when chlorella has connected with mercury, there's not a firm bond like you get with the IMD. It's a loose bond, and vitamin C can knock the mercury off the chlorella. Okay. And you take it exactly at the same time. So it should be taken an hour apart.
Perfect. That's good to know. Okay, next.
I think we need to.
Quickly.
As I said, I only practiced medicine just 56 years, so I delivered an awful lot of babies. I was trained by the director of the Chicago Lion Hospital, and he never had a placenta previa, never had a complication, because he already taught me obstetrics and gynecology. So I am the guru on magnesium and B6 and vitamin C, so we got to go back to the basics. I have everybody that gets into my office buy a stick that looks like a toothpick, and it's got a little green color on the end of it and measures how much C is in your urine. And if there's no C in your urine, technically you have no electrons to neutralize any of the bad guys. You could call it scurvy, It's a very simple message. If you want to live a long life, you want to have the bright spot. The bright spot is when it goes from the green color that is on the stick, the little paper stick, over to yellow, meaning that you're excreting a lot of C. Because if you're excreting a lot of C, it's the poor man's detox. And it's going to be that you'll have a brighter future. And if it stays dark green, you're going to have a dark future because you have scurvy. You don't have good collagen synthesis. Your tissues won't handle the whole problem of the pregnancy. So that was just touching basically the complex of vitamin C. When I do the hair mineral test, if there's no magnesium in the hair, you have no magnesium. Of course, I like red blood cell, white blood cell, and sublingual cell scraping. I'm an expert at magnesium. And I've saved the lives of pregnant women that would have lost the baby if I hadn't played the magnesium card, which you can't play without B6. So let's always remember, when we start out, it was the chemicals within us was the name of the article. That was over 12 years ago. And they started out explaining to mothers that if you want to get the lead out of your body, just have babies. Because the outbreed baby is going to take more lead out of your body and you're going to have lower lead. Of course, you're going to have sick children to take care of your whole life. So it's important to have the context of knowing that when we realize that because of the burning of coal to turn on the electric lamps around the globe, everybody starts with 1,000 to 2,000 times too much lead in their bone. So when you realize how serious this is, I don't want to oversimplify our answer because it is a major challenge to have a healthy child on an earth in which the 10 American study proved every kid is born with PBDE. And HBO this year did a special proving that polybrominated diphenyl ether was pure fraud. It actually makes the house burn faster, the child burns faster, the mattress, the furniture, and yet it dropped our sperm count from 140 million to 40 million. So you don't have that strong a pregnancy, which is why there are so many miscarriages. So understand, if we don't treat the papa and the mama, we haven't got a really good, perfect pregnancy. This is a real challenge.
You gotta keep right. Nobody was saying don't do vitamin C. They were saying separate vitamin C from chlorella. Next question. Right? Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Hydrocortisone, when should it be considered? This is a question because there are a lot of Lyme patients in the group, and a lot of times there's talk that steroids are contraindicated, so is hydrocortisone in that group? Should it ever be considered in small doses?
Profound adrenal exhaustion may have to do some hydrocortisone for a time until they get their adrenal levels built back up. But it's not a great idea long term.
I look at 10.
Let me just
Go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, Jonathan Wright, lectures a lot about the physiological use of hydrocortisone, and there is a wonderful book written by THRiiVE, is his name, called The Safe Uses of Cortisol, and the content of the book still stands. The adrenals produce about 40 to 50 milligrams of cortisol a day, and when you substitute 10 or 15 or up to 20 milligrams a day, they're absolutely not causing any of the steroid side effects that everybody is aware of. In fact, extending the life of the person. And when you take the cortisol is the most important adrenal hormone for our aliveness. Yeah, without cortisol, we die. Yeah, so you can live without testosterone. You can live without estrogen. You cannot live without cortisol. So it's absolutely important for our life. In fact, we're dead within 24 or 48 hours without cortisol. And so it often is a life-saving procedure to give it. And yet, I feel just like Lee does, usually people, you keep them on for 3 months, maybe 4 months, but then try to shift to one of the natural things like bacopa or ashwagandha, things that not only raise the cortisol level naturally, but actually repair the very mechanism why we're not producing enough. Yeah, so the plants are often also go-to, but we often in the Lyme patients, we need a few months of cortisol to have the patients immediately feel alive again, to get them out of the danger zone.
Quick.
It wasn't just Jack Kennedy that has low adrenal. It's an epidemic in this population. Proper testing, carefully done, several hours during the day, several times, saliva or urine is going to reveal how many people they can't get back unless you give them 10 to 20 milligrams, which I consider a vitamin, not even a drug. It's that basic. So thank you. Hydroxychloroquine is as good as calling it a vitamin. That's how safe it is. The safe uses of cortisone. This is what he just said. Safe uses of cortisone. But I'm just emphasizing, it is so misunderstood because doctors wound up taking that nice, wonderful drug and using it in such heavy quantities that it only got the bad reputation.
Okay, so we totally have our answer. That's perfect.
Thank
right?
you.
Okay, and my husband and children are at the United Baggage Claim, and when they get here, we're on borrowed time, so we got to get through this.
Yeah. So I think you said it was Dr. Jeffries, but I think it's Mac Jeffries, isn't it?
I'm out of here.
Why are you pointing at me? Where are you? Okay, next question.
All right, this
Okay,
one.
we got a 1 minute limit on every answer.
Shall we get you all 30 right now?
Get away from me, Kelly Gallagher.
No, I'm zooming in. Right now.
So people they're really wondering, do ionic foot baths work? What are your thoughts on them? Is there a brand that you trust most? How often should you use them?
Okay, so now I'm the world expert on this at the moment.
Yeah.
But first of all, we actually did some metallurgic exams and heavy metal studies, and so there is a couple of myths surrounding the foot bath.
Oh, this.
Only a couple. Okay,
He hates to hold it right.
So,
He didn't hold it right either.
so most of the foot baths, sold with the thing.
I'm sorry.
With the idea that you put your feet in there and the water turns a certain color and the color reflects how bad you are. However, if we found out if you actually wash your feet before you go in and you scrape the skin a little bit, the water doesn't turn a color. And if it does turn a color, what turns the color is just the copper coil that's in there. That's very clear. It's not what's in the water. However, I did the next step by putting people in a foot bath and then checking the urine that comes out of the patient. And the urine has tripled and quadrupled the amount of toxic metals that it had before. So what the foot bath truly does, it turns on the nephrons and the excreting cells in the kidney to certainly start doing their job better. And then...
Will you let me hold the microphone, please?
No, trust me, not having the other hands there. I have to...
Well, then just hold the main part.
This is fine,
Okay.
Yes.
It's making lots of noise because you're doing your thing.
I'm nervous. So what we did was a study on 30 people where we looked at, and the control group of 30 people that had a foot bath, 30 people that had a foot bath plus giving cilantro before. And so what we found out, the foot bath on its own quadrupled the output of toxic metals compared to the native urines without doing that. And by pre-medicating the person with cilantro tincture we used, 2 dropperfuls, 20 minutes before the foot bath, we quadrupled the amount of toxins compared to the already quadrupled amount from the other foot bath. And so the foot bath is an incredibly effective method. I have the statistics, I can maybe find it tomorrow. It increased virtually the excretion of virtually every toxic metal. Cadmium, nickel, barium, uranium, plutonium we had in there. Definitely aluminum, definitely mercury, definitely lead. So, and did not increase the excretion of the precious metals in us. Didn't bring up the zinc, didn't increase the magnesium excretion. So it's a fantastic tool. This is misunderstood. And it didn't matter, we checked different foot baths, it really didn't matter which model and which.
They should be used daily?
It should be used daily.
Or how many minutes?
Yeah, if this was, we did 20 minutes. 20 minutes was enough. And we feel strongly if somebody is making the detox, this is the, let's say, 3 months of their life that they really want to do it, they should do it every day. But for compliance, usually we do it 2 or 3 times a week.
Quickly.
I have a question. It's my understanding that the very first foot bath that came over from Australia had one electrode on the left side of the bath, one electrode on the right side of the bath, and the feet were in between, and no little gadget in between. And then sometime after that, it migrated to the present system, which is both electrodes between the feet. So do you know whether there's an improvement by having one electrode on the left and one on the right versus 2 in the middle?
I know the neurologist that did this experiment with in Germany. We used the modern version with the coil in the middle. We have a $50 version that a friend of ours, Dick Lloyd in Santa Fe, by simply using a 9-volt battery, and you have your feet in 2 different foot baths that are insulated from each other, and you run a current from one sole of the foot to the other just with a 9-volt battery. And we have the first test that we did indicate that you even get more metals out that way than with a $2,000 foot bath.
So bottom line, THRiiiVE is going to come up with a recipe on how to create a $4 foot bath. Next question.
$6.
Sorry, $6. Okay.
This is for a lot of the people that are dealing with candida and systemic candida. What are your treatment methods of choice for that? What's working?
Just let me answer this question.
Candida, in my experience, will not go away. Will not go away if a person continues to eat sugar or starches that are easily converted to sugar. So that's absolutely essential. As far as the remedies, there's all kinds of remedies. I've learned that a lot of the fungi are now not responding to the pharmaceuticals that used to work well, including more recent ones like Sporanox and Diflucan and so on. So if you do interject testing, you can figure out which remedy is going to most likely be effective rather than wasting several weeks on the wrong remedy.
That's just one short answer. For me, candida is often the surface marker for a deeper problem. The deeper problem usually is either mercury or parasites.
Yes.
So when I see candida, I know this is an adaptation of our system, and I look for parasites. If I don't find them, I look for mercury or both and treat that. And then usually the chronic candida goes away that way.
Don't you also see if people go for parasites or people go for viruses, but they don't change the milieu? It's like you can push me, pull you all you want, but unless you change what you're eating and your stress level and your adrenals and all that other stuff we talk about, one of them's going to win that race.
Yeah, just historically, in the 80s, everything was about candida. And
Yeah.
90s was all about the herpes viruses, Epstein-Barr, AIDS, and so forth. And since 2000, all about Lyme disease. And right now, there is sort of the circle is coming to completion. Now, recently, everything is about candida again.
And parasites.
And
It's like fashion, DJ.
Yes.
But
Bell bottoms and candida.
But I think I like to just say some acknowledging words here. Candida is the only mold or the only fungus that is known to produce over 600 different mycotoxins. Most of them produce 1 or 2, and Candida over 600. And so it stands really out in the group of fungi that, that are part of our natural digestive system. We all should have some in there. And when the inner milieu is Candida, actually is very immunosupportive. So it has positive functions as well, because the mycotoxins that it creates are largely directed against pathogenic bowel bacteria. So the Candida actually helps us. But if it gets out of control, then that's a bad thing. And so the old Candida diets, the low-carb diets for Candida, they have become a very, very important part again in our thinking. And so I'm back to Candida, and many other friends in the field are also out, that it actually is as important as it was believed in the 80s. It was just in the 90s we thought, well, the viruses are much more important, forget the Candida. And it was, yes, the viruses are important, but don't forget the Candida.
But if you feed them, you're going to have them.
Of course, a lot of people are going to cheat, and so it's nice to know that homeopathy can help.
Yeah.
And we've had a product that was based on inactivated candida bodies in a homeopathic with frequencies that has made a huge difference. And of course, silver absolutely, provably knocks the bejesus out of them. So those are a couple tricks for those people who
How do
think.
they get the homeopathy product?
They call King Bio. That is one of the largest homeopathic companies still in the world. 300,000 square feet. Asheville, North Carolina. I just lectured there last week.
And they asked for the Candida remedy?
That's all they have to ask for.
Perfect, thank you, Lee, quick.
And the last thing, and I think Dietrich would agree with this, is that if you have electromagnetically polluted environment, it's a lot harder to get rid of candida or any other fungus in the body.
Totally. Next question. Oh, jeez. You realize we're on question 4. It's 11 p.m. She's got 35 of them. We gotta speed this up.
I'll make it quick. Go back tomorrow. We have to
Yeah.
Okay.
We got other things we gotta do.
Well, a lot of them
I'm
were
certain
actually
these answers
covered
were redundant.
today.
Okay, Keith's gonna say something.
Yeah.
Keith,
Okay.
the
real
mortgage
quick.
banker, speak.
Yes. Smart mortgage bank. I believe that if you have a fungal infection, it's throughout the system, and it's in the gallbladder, and you produce 1 liter of bile a day from the gallbladder. So you can go on a diet and do everything, but if you don't stay on that diet and do it, you're being infected 24/7 from bile, because the infection just reinfects you. It's kind of hard to kill it off if you don't kill it with the source, which is the gallbladder.
So therefore, you have to gallbladder flush as part of the program.
Okay, can we pause for consensus on liver gallbladder flush? Do either of you guys feel like it's unsafe for someone to do
No,
liver gallbladder?
let's not do that. I think
Okay, fine, let's
I
not
think
do
we
that.
should get the liver gallbladder flush its due diligence, because I think we should really talk about it.
Okay, fine, you're right, you're right.
Oh, later on.
Yeah,
Detail.
but I just want to say the primary leading treatment for candida that we all do without ever thinking about it is the oxygen therapy. You know, the ozone therapies, the ribosol oils, the hydrogen peroxide, all the oxygenating therapies are the main thing. But you know, I think all of us agree. You know, we're looking at candida as a marker bug that something else is going wrong. You know, and the gallbladder is in there, the viruses are in there, the heavy metals are in there, the parasites are in there.
Terry, are you gonna say something?
Baby.
Terry, let Terry speak the right thing. GC math kicks up candida like crazy. Note to self.
Yeah, there's a viral connection.
Exactly.
It seems to me we're still throwing spaghetti against the wall, because what is, as Dr. Shade is alluding to, with citing redundancy, what is going in there and throwing in a biological monkey wrench that's detonating the whole system and allowing all of these opportunistic infections to occur? And Dietrich earlier was talking about diet, but again, after over a decade, I mean, we can closely observe kids and see what's helping them, and that's really called for, but people are giving nutrients that feed bugs, etc. We're still using a spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks approach. What is the root? What is going in there and throwing the biological monkey wrench that's detonating all these systems of the body that's allowing these infections?
I'm not going to give you the answer to that, but I am going to say everybody's worried about having to do some empirical testing with each patient, and it's a little bit hard to get around that, except to take protocols and take them, if you have the time, to dummy them way down and slowly titrate them up. Because you keep saying, you know, throwing spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. There's a problem when people are that we don't have enough testing to figure out what the problem is, and we don't always know. You do something and then all of a sudden bugs stir up, or we call it bug stirring up. This happens, we call it a detox reaction, we call it a Hertzheimer reaction. I just want to remind everybody that we don't know shit.
Really?
No, I mean really,
No, you're right.
really. And so we do the best we can, and there is an inevitable amount of iteration with each patient.
Chris, we may not know shit, but we know a hell of a lot more shit than any other room full of people.
All right, great. Yeah.
Come on, that was true.
No, it's great, but at a certain point, no, I want to get to something that's, so I do just the mercury protocols, and I deal a little bit with the rest, and I want to get to something where we can all go through it, and the only choice I have really is to say that the slope is from, a minuscule dose to a heroic dose, and the only thing that I can guarantee is that you start at a minuscule and work your way up, you're pretty much going to get there.
Chris, I have a name for that. TTT. Titrated Therapeutic Trial.
Well, I like that.
Yay! It's on my slide.
I give you big kudos for that. But after that disclaimer, can you guys describe why? Can you answer a question?
No, we answered the question. Did we answer the question?
Oh, I didn't answer the question.
The question was answered. Yeah. Good, moving on. Okay, from now on, we're going to pick one person to answer each question. Whoever thinks they got the best answer, go with that. Go. All right. And they really want to hear from THRiiVE, not to take favorites. Because he's some sort of legend rock star. I dated him in high school.
This is a big question. When are the best times to use these binding agents in relation to other supplements, prescription herbs, and meals? So people are wondering about activated charcoal, about chlorella, bentonite, zeolite, diatomaceous earth, microsilica, you name it. They're just wondering what's the optimal time to take these.
Half hour before each meal.
And the activated charcoal save for when you really want to bind the shit out of everything.
But the half hour before meal is because the moment you start eating, your bile starts squirting, and with the bile squirted into the small intestine are all the toxins. And so around that time, you want to have the binder sitting there to bind up the toxins so they don't get recirculated. That's number one. And so the fat-soluble nutrients like vitamin A, E, D, and K, and CoQ10 and some of the oily things should be taken with meals. They get absorbed generally better. And probiotics should be taken after a meal when the pH in the stomach is more alkaline. And most water-soluble vitamins, I recommend people take like first thing in the morning and some other time at night so that they don't have to compete for absorption with other things. So I would take the vitamins first, a little later the binder, and then half an hour later eat, and then after the meal take the probiotics.
And away from any of your oxidizers that you might be playing around.
Yeah.
If you're taking herbs only about 20 or 30 minutes before the food, so that they're clear from the stomach. Before we take a lot of C, for example, blocks the uptake of any of the herbs. So if you take vitamin C first and then the herbs, then you're losing the benefit.
What about, so if somebody's taking cat's claw, then they want to take chlorella. What timing? How far apart?
Chlorella is the only one of the binders that's intelligent. Chlorella only binds things that are toxic to higher living systems. It doesn't bind zinc, it doesn't bind molybdenum, it doesn't bind the things that it doesn't bind vitamin A. So
well, I could use
there's no conflict taking herbs together with chlorella.
What about?
No. In fact, if the herbs are Chinese herbs, they're probably full of lead, and it's great to take them together with chlorella. You still get the full herbal benefit when you take them with chlorella. That's not true for the other binders. The other binders will also extract from the herbs some precious ingredients. Of course, charcoal especially binds everything, but even zeolite, binds a lot of good things as well as bad things. But chlorella does not. Chlorella is alive, it's intelligent, only binds things that are bad.
And charcoal is your perfect go-to on you, especially when you did some stuff, it's not going well at all, and you want to hit the eject button, activate the charcoal as your eject button, bind everything up, hit reset.
Yep. if you're going to take proteolytic enzymes to try to break up fibrin in the body and other clot formation and so on, then that has to be 30 minutes before everything else will go on.
Okay, next question. Okay, now you're going to choose. And just nod.
Well, we tried. Just for the
You did good.
Just for the notes, Lee, did you say that the herbs are best 20 to 30 minutes before the meal? And
By the way, Sarah, best notes ever.
Oh,
It's just a little.
Did you say something about vitamin C relative to the herb?
The vitamin C has to be, probably 30 minutes or more after the meal. 30 minutes or more after the herbs, so that you don't block the absorption, uptake into the cell of the herbs.
We have to do clustering diagrams. This works with this.
No, but this was.
It was great. We now need to do homework on it and create clustering diagrams. Yeah. Okay, next question,
This
Sarah.
can actually be the last question because a lot of the other ones were answered earlier in the day.
Imagine that.
So the question is, a lot of people were starting to realize that maybe the ammonia is a big player. So we're all wondering how to address that, basically. People are just intuitively feeling, I'm smelling the ammonia, I know the parasites are giving out ammonia, how do we mop up? How do we deal with these?
Can I start?
Do you like black?
Lower your protein intake during the full moon. What do you think?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
If you're detecting a lot of ammonia from your breath, probably is, some.
Or from the stool, even.
Yeah, in the stool. Just break down the proteins in your gut. And so taking less animal source proteins is helpful, but the zeolite helps to bind up a lot of ammonia. Yucca root power also bind up ammonia. So.
Okay, you both have to answer this one. No, you got to.
First of all, I think it's important to know, at least in Germany, we have now a dipstick for ammonia in the urine, which is really wonderful. So it's just simple, costs like 5 cents a stick. You know whether you actually have it or.
Is it available here, or you'd have to
Well,
order it?
Cover him in his suitcase. People sell them.
I actually haven't looked, but I'm 90% sure it must be available here. Just nobody has asked for it, but it must be available online.
People would love that.
Yeah, so that's the first thing we want. The second, to reduce ammonia production, the urea cycle, and all that has to do all with the whole methylation business, the ABS group, and Lynch, kind of complicated, empty sort of.
Citrulline, ornithine, arginine.
Yeah, so there is that whole thought, but in terms of a more primitive thinking that I represent, so at least we already said that there is published research that shows that certain types of zeolite perfectly extract ammonia out of the bloodstream. So we use it to cut as a membrane, and then we stop the production of ammonia in the central nervous system with fairly high doses of a sugar called galactose. Yeah, that is a fantastic tool. It's published by my alma mater, the University in Berlin. The main researcher, the main glyco researcher. There's a whole thing about this 9 biological sugars, and we all know about omega-3 fatty acid, omega-6. We know all about fatty acids. We know about amino acids, but actually nobody knows anything about the sugars that we actually need. There's 9 biological sugars.
Huge.
And galactose is one of them. Gary's favorite sugar is. He's not here right now.
Right here.
The THRiiiVE, is his sugar, and yet there is 10 times more research on galactose actually strengthening the heart muscle much more than our ribose. But here in America we do ribose because there's an American patent on it, so there's some more publications on the ribose here. But internationally it's galactose, and galactose stops the production of ammonia in the central nervous system, and it's wonderful because it's sweet, tastes like a gentle sugar. It doesn't have the distorted taste of sugar like stevia or other things. And so we do those two things, the zeolite and the galactose, and we tinker with the methylation cycle to try to get that right.
And your curcumin. Curcumin switches that gate to pH4, and for every 2 pH4, you can have 1 ammonia molecule. Is that correct? And the other thing about the essential sugars, Jim Hassinger from World Health Law, I bought the book, the second conference I went to 12 years ago, the 9 essential sugars, sugars that heal. I thought this totally makes sense. Didn't like the MLM thing, so Jim Hassinger created a little thing of essential sugars. And back at the ranch, and we were muscle testing like crazy. Every time we would have a chelating sort of surge, that the molybdenum would come in, the sugar was right after that. That's exactly, it would be in real time, boom, boom, boom. And I don't know the science on that, but played out all the time.
Are they 6 carbon sugars, or are they going to feed the candida?
I don't think they do. I don't think they feed the candida.
High carbon sugars.
But galactose is a sugar that does not raise insulin.
Yeah.
Response.
No.
And it goes straight. There's no transport mechanism in the cell. It filtrates straight through the cell wall into the mitochondria.
And it's some sort of
any transporter needed or any other system.
And they're essential. They're like all these other things. If you don't have them, you're screwed.
So it doesn't raise, there's no insulin response, and so it's unlikely to feed candida.
Okay, keep holding my close.
Okay, so I have a different point of view to a certain extent. I believe it's caused from a fungal infection when you start to smell ammonia, because the system is acidic. And it's acidic because the infection is eating up all the trace minerals. The trace minerals bind to amino acids. And without the trace minerals, you start to go acidic, and the body uses a natural process of taking calcium bicarbonate and calcium out of the bone to make calcium bicarbonate to offset the acidity. But when it becomes such an infection and it gets so overwhelming and the system can't pull enough calcium out of the bones fast enough, the last-ditch effort of the body is to produce ammonia to offset the acidity. Because you have to stay in a pH range of 7.38 to 7.42. And if you get out of that range by 1 degree in either direction, within an hour, most likely you're dead. So this is a mechanism. So when you smell ammonia, you're smelling like death. Because if you go into a cancer ward, it smells like a dirty ammonia. If you go into an old folks' home, when their system is breaking down and they're smelling ammonia, and it's definitely, in my opinion, the root cause is an infection, most likely fungus.
Well, it's always infection. cause. Okay, is that it, Sarah? We did it, and yay! Good job, Sarah! Oh my God, and I'm sorry, that was crazy. I don't know, 1 or 2 in the afternoon. What do you think? No, what time do you guys want to start? 10.